It's preparing, always preparing. Preparing, always preparing. Computer. Tonight in my living area, text is just working. Well, I'll keep the chat window open so I can see what's coming in from here. Ellie's, Evie's Hawking radiation cloud coming out of chat. Okay, cool. Well, we're live, everybody. So, how is us all? You can
I'm doing great. I'm just here sitting, having some lunch right at the moment.
awesome. What are you having?
Some sandwiches, tuna sandwich.
Tuna sandwich. So interesting how we're, across the world, almost like literally, even though you're just an ocean away, that is a really big ocean.
In terms of the galaxy, I'd say it's rather a short distance.
A little skip and a jump, huh? Well, that really puts everything in perspective, doesn't it? Well, today I kind of wanted to go over some stuff, and then leave it open to the floor if anybody had any shares or any recent discoveries or any kind of thing. There's a lot going on in the news, and we had the hearings recently that brought a lot of attention and focus into the space. All of a sudden, people are all talking about UAPs and UFOs, and in ways they hadn't before. And it felt for a second like there was going to be this big revelatory moment, and people were going to come around, and the government might open up, and these USAPs might open up, and Congress had that bill that didn't seem to make it through the Senate that was going to force the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and Northrop Grumman and Sandia Corporation and Battelle Labs and the whole long laundry list of usual suspects to tell us what they had going on. And then for some reason, it seems like the money started talking, and we had Kirkpatrick released that letter that said he was upset with how Grush seems to have embarrassed the DoD in a way. And we have this situation where they're kind of taking this line, like instead like they usually do, like they're more mad at the leakers than they are mad about the fact that there's all this chicanery, right? Yeah, I feel like I've seen this movie before, but some people are new and just came online to this. So I have to, say, like, I remember it was the 90s, and I remember the Phoenix Lights, and the governor saying what he said, and the guy coming out on stage in the alien costume and stuff, which he later recanted. But yeah, it's been a long road coming here to this point with this subject, and I just wanted to put a call out there to anybody that was like feeling the pressure of others, and the walls kind of closing in, and the rumor mill starting, and then the media is like, well, where's the evidence really? And well, he said that he didn't want to show it because he was going to go to jail if he did, all of that. So, does it make sense? Anybody have any thoughts on that? How do you feel about the situation?
Well, it is momentum, before there was no momentum, there was no game, there was no bouncing ball going down the basketball court. At least now the basketball is bouncing, and a little bit of the stigma behind this phenomena is lifting, and you have notable scientists started to do it, such as Avi Loeb. There was a recent thing about Michio Kaku who said the burden of proof now lies upon the government, not the people. So the paradigm is changing. So that's all positive. Whether this continues to go in this breakneck effort that it has been compared to the glacial effort that it has been in the past, I think it's overall been a good thing. Uh, sure, everybody wants to know all the answers. Sure, everybody wants it right now, but there's a lot of political wheels, like you said, that's turning behind the scenes. There's pressures from the lobbyists to try to keep this topic out of the public eye. There's pressure from the DOD and the DOE to keep this topic out of the public eye. But it is in the public eye at this moment. And I believe behind the scenes that people are still working on this in Congress, in the Senate, that are trying to get some measure of acknowledgement. It may not be quote unquote disclosure per se, but it'll be some kind of, yeah, they're here, it's real, but we can't tell you any more than that.
Right.
Stay tuned.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
that's kind of my feel on the whole situation. The hearings itself was historic.
Yeah.
The testimonies were historic, and they say that that's not evidence. Well, it is evidence. There has not been sworn testimony that's been placed before the halls of Congress before. So this is actually new territory. It's
Yeah.
not
Even
the
then,
same old
even then
game.
they had the hearings in the 50s, didn't get that far, right? They
No,
left it
no.
at swamp gas or something like that. Yeah, it's really, you're right. There is momentum on it now. There wasn't before. And we should be grateful for that, for all the people that have put, it's a Sisyphean task, that's for sure. And it's not going to be easy. It's the biggest secret in the world. And we're up against some of the biggest secret keeping agencies in the history of the world. People think that the government can't keep a secret like this. We got another thing coming. Have you heard of the movie about Oppenheimer? Go look at that movie. It's a pretty big secret they kept hidden. But this long, yeah. Yeah, I think nature speaks for itself. That's why Avi is a really big light to me. I hope he comes around to some of these new physical interpretations. So we can be talking the same language. But I hear he's coming up with something really interesting. Have you heard anything about what might be on the horizon with that?
Actually, no, I haven't. The last thing I heard was just a material study, and I don't think, to my knowledge, that he's actually published what those little spherules are. So I'm sure it's went through some kind of analysis, and it'll be published shortly. And that in itself would be something, right? Okay, well, yeah. Even though if it's not saying that they're here now, it's saying, well, they sent a probe, and this probe went by us, and it was called a Muamua,
Right, right.
and it dropped its bits and pieces out in the ocean. So at least then it'd be still momentum, still news, still newsworthy, and
Mhm.
that would help reduce the stigma somewhat within the scientific community. People like Neil deGrasse Tyson would have to say, "Oh, yeah, maybe I'm a little bit too harsh."
It's been a little harsh. It's been a little harsh. I love what he's done over the years, like Cosmos, his re-rendition of Cosmos. The first one I saw was got me into a lot of this stuff. At least the physics end of things. Very inspiring work. But I think he should be a little bit more open-minded. I mean, I was in astronomy class in college, and I asked the question like, why no aliens? And they said the typical answer, which is, oh, the distance. But you all watch Star Trek, it's not hard. I mean, it's difficult to do, but that, here we have the theories, and now it feels like we're even closer to the theories. So if we can even start to wrap our minds around how maybe we don't have the meta materials with like engines hot in hand yet, but if we could start to wrap our mind around how we could, it makes sense that another culture far advanced, maybe thousands, millions, maybe even billions of years, it's not inconceivable, would have it down pat, won't be doing these things. So that's always occurred to me. It's just never seemed like a logical argument to me.
The human lifespan is quite short, and um, the new generations growing up, and they've always been inundated with smartphones and technology everywhere, and uh, projection screens and LEDs and LCD monitors. And just a little while ago, a cell phone was the size of a large walkie-talkie, or it
Yeah,
would have to be plugged in, and it didn't have any kind of smart functionality whatsoever.
I remember those.
You can just you can just talk on it, and it was amazing to use those. I remember calling my parents from the beach.
It was
Uh,
like a radio. You could just dial the phone,
yeah,
Um, yeah, it was like a big radio. And
now we
yeah, we had the Nokia bricks for a while. Those were indestructible. Yeah, they were destroyed by obsolescence. Um,
now we have portable computers in our back
mhm,
pocket or the
yep,
palm of our hands.
yep.
So going back just a little bit further, it wasn't too long ago when man first stepped on the moon. And speaking of the, that's a blink of the eye in humanity. And go before that, it wasn't too long ago when man had his first flight. And you go back before that, the first automobiles, and then before that, everything was horse and buggies and steam engines and locomotives. I mean, we have really went very far as far as technology goes in the past 120 years. It's really breathtaking if you look back at prior humanity. What was
What was
life
the
like?
what was the name of? Yeah, I don't know if you remember the name of the character that said somewhere around the turn of the 20th century that we figured everything out. There's nothing new to be invented, nothing new under the sun. And then the whole 20th century happened. I wonder if
I
he looked back and
I think it was Lord Walter Riley. That sounds about
that
right,
sounds
but I have to double check. It's been a
yeah,
while.
yeah.
But it
Either
was it
way,
was it was someone like that.
each step of the way, there's been people saying, y'all are crazy. You're never gonna build a car, you're never gonna fly, you're not gonna make it to the moon. Computers, what? No, that's people. Only people can be computers. And then you're never going to be able to have a conversation with a computer, not like, it's the point where you wonder if you're actually conversing with another living being. And now we've had that one, at least as far as I'm concerned, passes the Turing test where I can see. And really that test is actually more of a test for people. It's more of a test of how easily we can be fooled in this sense, but also a question about what consciousness is. Don't want to get into AI just yet. That's a moon. We've just had a major moon landing, technologically speaking, from my field. And that's we're still processing it. And we
We
got it that last time.
we actually had a successful landing on the south side of the moon by the unmanned Indian project. I saw the video today. Their rover went down the ramp onto the surface. And then, of course, the Russians did a crasho into the moon. Their thing didn't go well.
Everybody's going to the moon. Too bad the tardigrades already beat them all to it. But I think they had an assist. Yeah, Yeah, it's well, the moon's really interesting. I think economically speaking, they're all after that helium-3. Makes sense to me. I think that's driving a lot of this lunar exploration. That's a little sad. I wrote a sci-fi in my head. I haven't put it to paper just yet, but where there's the helium-3 is part of some like energy source, or kind of like the beating heart of a lunar ecosystem that's based on all these particles and charged particles and magnetism all polarized on the surface of the moon there. And the helium-3 is like, it's blood, and then we're going after it so it defends itself. But how does a luminous polarized electromagnetic plasma moon creature defend itself? Well, it's been listening for a long time. It knows what gets to us. But hey, they talk about lunatics a lot. There's a word for that. What you doing, buddy? Any more of these? You want some more gummy bears? Okay, we'll go back. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's one duck I didn't get into. It's sort of rolling with it. Yeah. Well, we're making progress on the disclosure thing, it feels like, and it also feels like we're making progress on the technology. Although, we don't have access to that. There are people out in the open talking, and you wonder, like, well, why Jax or Body and these guys who say they're in contact with the DoD, and Travis Taylor is associated with DoD, and Sal Pais, who's associated with DoD, why they're all walking around talking about this stuff freely. It's also secret. And then, you wonder, like, so here's what I, wonder, is it that they don't want to reveal that there's aliens, or is it that they don't want to reveal that actually they've got some sort of technology that they've been working on, and they're holding out and they're perfecting that to get it to the point where they could do some sort of psychological operation on the planet, or as
Well, I
Greer
mean,
would say, false flag alien attack. That's a lot of people say. I don't know. That sounds cuckoo, but
well, I mean, it could be a combination of many factors. I mean, if you have proprietary technology that's going to ensure your business to succeed in the upcoming half century, I'm not sure that I would want that out there personally if I was a business
it's
or I
true.
was one of those entities. So I can see it coming from that aspect. I can see it coming in the aspect of uh, competition between countries, like U.S. versus China or U.S. versus Russia or any of that kind of sphere. You don't really want to show all your cards at once. It's
Yeah,
just when there comes a major conflict, it's like, oh wow, we have something right out of Buck Rogers.
right. Yeah, it's sort of weird to me that, and I noticed this, like there was a moment just after the beginning of the Ukraine conflict where it was revealed that we didn't have the best, quote unquote, hypersonic missiles, and China all of a sudden, and Russia had superior missiles to us, or at least cruises. There was some question if it was on ICBMs or anything yet. But then suddenly, all of a sudden there was this focus on UAP, or at least like some UAP incidents happening. And some people acted as if, well, it's a distraction. That caused some folks at first to dismiss these disclosure hearings, which are actually more of a slow boiling, still low simmer thing that has been going on for a long time.
Well, you look
And
at it this, the advantage of a hypersonic missile. Okay, so say you launch hypersonic missiles and they can make it to their target a little bit quicker than your standard ICBMs, which is also hypersonic, by the way. That still doesn't solve anything. It's still part of the mutually assured destruction idea.
yeah,
Once they launch hypersonics, they'll be detected, and it's like, oh crap, oh crap. Okay, launch our ICBMs.
yeah, what do
Well,
you do?
yeah, what do you do? I mean, they can't shoot all those down, and we may
That's
have,
why,
we may have technology out there that can, why do we develop hypersonic missiles if we've actually got something in the hole that's
exactly.
better already?
I was wondering if it was a low key flex of sorts to bring it onto the media scene where there it was like a low key disclosure, at least to those paying attention in foreign governments that are watching, where if you were the DoD and you had these things, you'd want to let your adversaries know, like, hey, come on, don't even test this because look what we have. But you wouldn't want to come right up.
Right. I mean, you know, chances are we do have something better.
Yeah.
That big hole that's spent in all the U.S. military funding, it goes to lots and lots and lots of pockets. And, you know, we may have things that probably do have things that shoot down most ICBMs if they were to launch something. We probably got,
That's been on at least one eyewitness testimony I've heard of through the Disclosure Project.
yeah,
So
and
yeah,
we've obviously got space-based weapons too, you know.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to, but you can damn well guarantee it that they're out there.
well, and I feel as if there's also then there is an ET thing involved, and I've heard from, I mean, there's the Rendlesham Forest case and the countless examples of UAP visiting nuclear sites, not just active, not even when they have plutonium or anything like that. I believe that they were visiting the Hanford site as ground was breaking, as construction was happening, before there was a pile there or anything. There's some sort of, you know, and that makes sense though in terms of surveillance. But that's years before Roswell. And that's years before a lot of these other crashes and things that we suppose, you know, would get us material. So it doesn't make sense that those visitations would be, you know, us. I don't think that would be surprise me if we had it that early. That's all I'm saying. So there's another element at play, and maybe we're developing these things so that we can protect those assets instead of learning the lesson from them buzzing our nuclear sites and like starting a fake countdown and scaring the crap out of everybody there just to show us, hey, why do you even have these things? We're like, where are you? Wrong message. We get all the time. How dare you mess with our toys? These toys, the ones you could liquefy your whole ecosystem with in an instant. Why do you even have this?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of more destructive things that were developed that supposedly you don't have. Like there was something called a neutron bomb. A neutron bomb kills basically all the biological matter
Right.
within the area, and the infrastructure remains intact.
Right. That's scary.
And something like that, you know, if you actually want to take over a place and take its infrastructure and its materials, that would be what you would launch.
Yeah.
You would vaporize basically everything and make it the earth sterile in that area.
It'd be like
within
a
weeks,
or a targeted retrovirus or something like that that just dismantles human mitosis or something.
yeah. I mean, there's
Something targeted.
all kinds of crazy stuff. You know, with all the recent developments, decoding the human genome, and you know, recently they just fully mapped out the Y chromosome. They hadn't done that yet. So they're getting more pieces of the puzzle of our genetic origins and what roles they play. So you can probably more than likely easily make tailored viral agents that would attack certain populations, if you will. It's horrible. It's atrocious. It's Dr. Mendele level stuff, but I'd say we are and other countries are actively pursuing this type of thing.
So I was saying, you know, to somebody in the chat the other day, about, you know, there's so many ways, there's so many great filters, right? So many ways for civilization of our caliber or and infancy, you know, we're like adolescents in the sense that we found the firecrackers in the basement, and everything else too, and need to develop the wherewithal to not kill ourselves or blow our hands off. You know, maybe that's right. I should control my language to say on YouTube, but that and we're kind of like running around, you know, running around the neighborhood, neighborhood. We found an open dad safe or something like that. We really don't know what we're doing yet, and yet there's this window of time when a civilization's super vulnerable. When and I wonder, you know, so my hypothetical civilization in this sense is like 1,000,000 years old. Let's say you've been around the galaxy a few times. You've made it as a civ. You're starborn Kardashev 2 culture all over the galaxy, and you've seen this movie before so many times and so many ways. You just decide that you don't want to have to see this, and it's roughly pointless, and it makes for a really dead universe that doesn't have a lot of interesting people to talk to, or just one or two, you know, 2 or 3 civilizations, and after that you're like, well, let's give them a chance. You set up some sort of system where you watch them for a while, you give them little hints, and you give them a little clues, and you let them tear into each other, because that's, you know, kids fight, hopefully not too bad, but just stop them just short of absolutely utterly destroying themselves. So I'd be curious about not just the nuclear aspect, but if we have UAP sightings over biolabs and you know, AI development centers and other centers that we're developing tech that could potentially, you know, cause ripples and eddies, negative eddies in time. And maybe we're seeing you know, in these places, seeing beings from future eddies that realized at some point that that was a bad move, and they're trying to give other timelines an opportunity. I just went down that rabbit hole pretty far, but that's what occurs to me. And then so I'm not even thinking in terms of, are they going to hurt us or not? I'm like, well, what do we know? They've been around the block a few times. To any of these 1,000,000-year-old, you know, super civilizations. What who are we to
We
say we don't need the help?
we do a pretty good job of hurting ourselves.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I don't know what the apprehension and fear, it's more of the fear of the unknown with this type of thing. These NHIs, or what are they capable of? And as far as biologicals, as far as the military is concerned, yeah, because it's the military. They worry
Right.
about that kind of thing.
It's their
But
whole job.
as far as the general population, you know, we're not in the loop on any of that, and we're not the ones pushing the buttons to blow shit up and to blow each other up and kill each other. We're doing I think a fine job on our own on that. Now, you know, earlier I touched on, you know, the breaking speed that we made to develop in the past 120 years. Has humans grown in wisdom in that time? Probably not.
Mhm.
To have these toys, to have these technologies, you know, that's one of the things that needs to develop in humanity. We need to be a little bit more wiser about what we do and how we utilize and live on this planet with one another. And we need to figure out how to quit blowing each other up. And until we do that, I don't think we would be really worthy or ready to actually have a face-to-face chat with Joe the alien.
Yeah.
I think actually humanity failed. Um, they have to come and intervene, and they have plans and stage timelines. Humans are just not capable of living in harmony without external help. And it's really sad. I foresee a lot of wars and destruction and stuff because, I mean, come on, we know how geopolitical powers are. They sense an opening, or they sense their opponents becoming much stronger. I
Yeah.
mean, that harkens back to the Peloponnesian War, which I know makes me sound like a big nerd, but I used to listen to this ancient Greek history course to help me get to sleep. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. I just hope, you know, my small survival colony can make it. I'll do everything I can. But the vast powers of humanity, just kept everything in a violent grip for too long. The good and gentle people not allowed to break free. So I'm just victims like everybody else.
Yeah, I mean,
I,
that
I,
could be
I
the
think it,
case.
I think it was Spaceballs, the quote that said, "Good sucks" or something like that. Um,
Or no,
I-
evil will
Or
always
good,
triumph because good is
because
stupid or something.
good is dumb.
Good
Yeah.
is dumb. Good is dumb. Yeah, right.
Well,
I forgot how it went, but yeah, Spaceballs. Spaceballs is
Yeah.
awesome.
clever good people know how evil people operate because they've been their
We're
victims.
now, um,
But
yeah,
anyway,
yeah, it's, I, I don't know if I completely, I think that it did and it does and so forth, but then, I don't know, I read, my kiddo is into speculative evolution, so we read books like The Expedition by Wayne Barlow, which is that's what they base the documentary Alien Planet on. They leave a lot of the book out of the doc, obviously. A big part of the book is that humans basically failed, and there's these aliens that come along and basically save us, right? And they give us all this technology and the opportunity to go around the galaxy, and but then, and it doesn't really talk about the sociological aspects of that, but it does mention that they're so wise and great, and aren't we grateful that they didn't just kill us, but then we're almost like pets. I would hate, I would not, as much as I like to understand that they're probably technologically superior to us. Oh, did you bump your leg?
I
Watch
think
it.
there's no
Ow.
probably about it. They
Yeah,
definitely are.
for sure. I think we lost Tim. Scratched you. It wasn't already scratched. Just
But I don't know. I think the good aliens want to help the good people, but not the bad people. The bad people run Earth. Just look around.
right,
Look at
right.
these systems and
And
how
I
they
wonder if
abuse
they're
people.
those small. That's a very small group. You know.
Yes, the
And
numbers of humans are going to go down. I don't
not.
want it that way, but that's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
People that are
Well,
murderous and violent and warlike. So
we don't. None of us really know the future, so I'd like to think we're on some sort of spectrum of timelines, potentially good, potentially bad timelines, and that there are timelines where it works out and somewhere it doesn't. And I think that there's some sort of force involved with trying to make sure as many timelines work out well as possible. I don't know, maybe that's a kind of ontological or um, existential cop out of sorts, but also it leaves the doors open to tweening reality, like tweezing reality to an extent.
yeah.
That's what we do in this faith. And the only thing that can explain, you really don't need it because you just bumped a scab, but I think that we're tweezing reality timelines. That's the only way I can explain how that thing works,
Yeah.
because you're thinking of possible timelines opening and possible vectors on the future, and that's becoming more possible, and somehow that's entangling the circuit between those possible futures in your present moment that's thinking about those
Yeah.
timelines.
Yeah.
So I that and but you're no, as far as most of the world is concerned, there's nothing to prove that there's just one or several It just feels that way.
I
So I
just
don't
know
know
I personally don't want to have to live through this stuff more than once.
for real.
Please God,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. Well, I had to live through the end of the universe several times on DMT, but that's another story for another day. It got to feeling old after a while. It's just, and then it was just like, wait, what is even happening? I've been through the fires of creation and back so many times. It's like a butterfly flapping its wings or lungs
Yeah.
breathing or something like that. Like apocalypse is a cycle. And I think we've been down this rabbit hole before. There's different times that this shows up.
Yeah.
And there's one big power that's in control of the world, and then there's the movement, the grassroots movement of the people to be free and yearning to be free. And you see this archetype playing again and again and again. And it always feels like it's the end this time, but actually the apocalypse has
here.
been, it's a marketing strategy. I mean, it's been a marketing strategy for religion since the beginning, since the beginning of Christianity anyway. They've been predicting that since day one. So a lot of the reason for the Dark Ages is everybody is like, well, why should we fix anything? Because the end of the world's like right around the corner.
Yeah, using it as a cop out is quite foolish, obviously.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like, but it could be, and it's almost like the UFO that way. Like the UFO is there as an archetype of the potential gleaming, sci-fi inclusive, spiritual future we all wish we could achieve, and the apocalypse is there as the potential complete breakdown of everything we know and love and all moral reason and value. And those are themes that show up in religion again and again and again, heaven and hell. So it's really quite like it's deep, and I don't know what quite to make about it. And
Yeah. One thing I kind of gets me is people say like, oh, the apocalypse was predicted before and it never happened. And then they use that theory to say that therefore it never ever will. But we've
yeah, no,
got
that's
infinite growth attempts on a finite planet, and just look what it's done to the planet.
right. Well, we're just talking about from an ET perspective, we call this the Great Filter. It's the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
thing basically. There's a million ways to die. Just roll the dice. Take your pick: rogue AI, gray goo, nuclear fallout.
But I think as a sentient species, we're actually something really precious, and a lot of entities, groups of entities, beings, however you want to describe them, have a lot at stake with us. And I think
I
some of them walk among us too.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Although, like, there's a million and one of these UFO spring up things. It's like we're the ones that are going to survive, and the ships are the ones that are going to take us, not these others. And I've yeah, like Mormonism is technically that. Islam is technically that. Christianity is, you can think of as a little miniature version of that. A lot of these, like heaven is, and I was reading the Mahabharata the other night, and they were talking about Arjun going into heaven to go see in Indralok, which is Indra's palace, and Indra's palace is in the clouds, of course, but it's invisible, and they have to go through all this mystique to get there, and it just sounds like a hidden, like it's warped. It sounds like a city that's got a work field around it. Not to say
Yeah.
that takes away the mystique, but we
Yeah.
might be. This might not be the first time this has happened. I mean, we talk about the cataclysm around 11,800 BC, the Younger Dryas, Younger Dryas impact. And then there's this other one I've been hearing about lately that's called the Burkle impact, and I'm not sure exactly that occurred. Some people say maybe Madagascar, but you can see huge remnants of giant waves all across the planet. We at one point we were all tying them to Younger Dryas, but that doesn't seem logical anymore because there's other waves that seem to go emanating in other directions. And then also apparently something maybe around 3,000, 4,000 BC in the Mediterranean. So you have these periodic we think we had this nice, easy, flat human development span. I don't think it's been that at all. We might have had several perfunctory moments. And so here we are trying to get a grip on ET civilizations visiting us. We don't really even have a clear grip on our own history. It would seem. So
The, one of the things that's not readily discussed on this is what else could you learn rather than the technology, the nuts and the bolts? What kind of wisdom can you gain? What kind of philosophies can you learn? What kind of songs do these things potentially have? What kind of music? What kind of literature? What are their stories? And that would be in itself a wealth. If you could get access to that. So say they don't say, "Oh, you're not quite ready to handle any technology. Please don't mess with that for now.
Mhm.
But here, read these books on philosophy."
mhm.
And that could be a game changer in itself if there was
Right.
that kind of dialogue, right? Or, hey, here's the gaps in your history. This is what's happened in the past. You weren't around then. Your ancestors was. You've been. There have been multiple cataclysms on the earth, and this is what happened, and this is what caused it, and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And that would be awesome. Apart
That'd
from
be
the
nice.
nuts and the bolts. Because I mean, really, we have enough nuts and bolts right now, and we utilize them to do a lot of destructive things. And going into say things like mass surveillance on populace and all these efforts to kind of lose privacy and whatnot. It's just humans. We have the capacity to screw things up on our own.
Yeah,
But
the
it would be not.
capacity to err is human. To
Let me
really
just
screw
look
things up
around.
takes a computer. That's what I
Yeah.
heard.
I would say humankind itself is a kind of cataclysm. What we've wrought.
It can be argued as such. I think it's a viral structure in our mentality. It's a kind of computer virus that's taken over humanity. I don't blame humanity itself. Like humanity, its
Well,
essence is a child sharing, flowers and other things like that. But it's also the same child sometimes making their sibling eat dirt. It's a
oof.
weird world. No, that's never happened with mine, but it does happen. They're both
Well,
examples of children. But how can we really put a fine point on whether human nature is good or bad? It seems to be very
it varies
bipolar.
from person to person.
And within the same person, that's why a lot of the stories about Jesus that were cut out of the Bible were negative stories about Jesus, and like, no, we can't have that.
Yeah.
And in the Gnostics, and where he accidentally killed pigeons and accidentally killed a friend and other stuff with his mind, and it was sort of like maybe meaningful, maybe gave the whole situation a little bit of humanity, and maybe gave us a lesson about how we all have these dark and light characters.
Yeah. Well, there's that one line that says the line between good and evil runs through the middle of a human heart,
Yeah,
or the
I think
center. Yeah.
I really like Doctor Who because of that. That theme. That's that show. I mean, has meant a lot to me because what is it? His line. He says somebody was like a character that wants to live forever. He's like, I don't want to just be a normal human. And the Doctor says, well, I've been around this universe maybe 3 or 4 times, and I don't think I've ever met a normal human, or a standard human, ordinary. I never met an ordinary human, and that dovetails with this one I've heard before, which is that normal people are the ones I don't know very well yet. Just like, think about it.
Yeah.
Either that's, I don't know very many normal people, or one level deeper, everybody's abnormal. And I just, you know, they're in hiding. And or also, once you meet people, you find out that we're all a little bit
Yeah.
strange
Yeah.
in
But
our own ways.
but yeah, some people think that greed and brutality is good and they lead their lives that way and they make it hell for others. And there's
Yeah.
other people that are so benign and gentle they would never harm another. And that
Yeah.
the aliens see the difference between the different people.
Well, and so wouldn't it be easier to just, make, or I have to be careful here, for them, not any of us, to like, to, wouldn't it be some sort of rich sort of karma if the cabal of evil, I don't want to say evil, but megalomaniacal billionaire fat cats that are driving the planet into the ground developed some sort of like mental illness that befell them and made them absolutely unable to, why can't they have some like debilitating high strangeness experiences that totally ruins their day? Or something, like, come on, you guys just quit go to
I
bed.
prefer something that makes them do like a heel face turn from bad to good and they make
That
better choices and they use their massive piles of resources to alleviate suffering and help others. That's
that's
what I
what
would
I'm
prefer.
that's what I'm hoping is the case. It seems so much easier than taking, like, deleting most of the planet's population, allowing these maniacs to do their population control regime, and do such disasters, and leave us all helpless. That's a huge waste, I think.
Yeah,
And the planet,
mercy.
you get to save the planet, don't have to let the ecosystem get destroyed. Although already we're living through it already. We're in the
Yeah.
apocalypse. In ecological terms, we're already there. We're in the middle of
Yeah,
the
but there's a
fifth.
lot of people. I mean, there's the potential idea of radical degrowth, deep adaptation,
Mhm.
treading lightly on Gaia and greatly reducing our energy use and the poisoning of Gaia and all of this. But people are en masse, and the powers that be aren't willing to let that happen. Mm. They're the
Yeah.
winners right now, so they're not going to let that happen. But it's sad because the potential is there. The ideas are there, permaculture, regenerative farming, all of this kind of thing. But
Whether or not
it's
they
not
can
powerful
succeed at
enough.
that.
Yeah,
What
and everything's really distributed, tiny little spots here and there.
there are moments in history that just change things, and I keep, like, I think about, like, Hannibal suddenly showing up on the battlefield of elephants because he figured out how to use vinegar to melt rock on the way over, and nobody had ever actually done that very seemingly simple thing, and all of a sudden there's elephants in a Roman battlefield and they're getting worked. That must have been terrifying, but it changed history. And I see these guys working on it. I just don't, yeah. It could go either direction. I went in for 2012. I think that it will in many respects. Like, we're already living through population collapse, civilization collapse, ontological collapse, institutional collapse, mental health collapse. How many versions of collapse? Okay, we're collapsed now.
It's
Let's rebuild.
cascades.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cascades
cascades.
of collapse. On I go out on Facebook and I see friends lives being ripped to shreds by the failing system. My life has been, in personal ways I won't go into here, been ripped to shreds by the failing system. Those things which they said would always be there, which is why you guys can go ahead and trust this, mental health system, public health system, and we'll take care of you. And then they stop, and then they're not there, and then they're not taking care of you, and it all falls apart. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
did
there's a
what
lot
I did
of,
what you said I should do. Where's your social contract when I need you to pay the bill? Come on now.
yeah.
It's we're in it. I mean, how far into the woods, into the dark or the middle of the woods do we need to go before we start coming out the other side? So,
Mhm.
and it could get much worse. However, we you know, to wit, there's a lot of parts of the earth we don't see, and it is hell on earth in most of it. It just hasn't come to roost here yet. And all these devastated ecologically and politically and sociologically and economically devastated regions of the planet that are dollar bubbles perpetuated. You know, we're protected, and it hasn't come home to roost for us yet. No wonder when
Starting.
that's yeah. It started trickling in the early 2000s, a little bit later. Well, one could argue it's all been downhill since Nixon. Nixon got us, broke the Bretton Woods agreement, got us off the gold standard. But I don't want to make this conversation about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going pell-mell toward a brick wall, and people are arguing over the seating. That's how David Suzuki
And
put it.
and the powers that be are jamming that accelerator faster and faster and turning on the turbo.
Right. So you have a critical mass of pain that the organism needs to feel before it feels stimulated enough. Oh, we got Ashtar Sharan in the YouTube chat. Before they feel stimulated enough to make a change, right? It's a biological phenomenon.
Well,
And
I'm an
that's the
early
problem with it.
panicker person, so
Yeah. Well, I've been panicking this whole time too, but now I'm the frog slowly boiling. It's like we'd love to pick up and move to the forest and do our off-grid thing. To some degree, that's even questionable. Like they have. I was just hearing from a friend of mine. You need a permit to live off-grid in California. Like you need them to come check out your freedom to see whether you're okay being free or not. It's just really like blows my mind. It was like, so you need permission to be free? Like basically people were like, well, you can't just let anybody do anything, and you can't have
you can't let anybody do anything. Meanwhile,
right.
in San Francisco, they have all these people out on tents that are
right.
hooked
So
on
if you want to
narcotics.
escape, you can't escape and do your own thing.
yeah, I mean they trap good people in abusive systems and alternatives are closed off.
Right. Well, you
Well,
guys
they
continue
defunded
this
it.
for a moment. I have to go put somebody back to bed.
Okay.
They defunded the mental health care. I think it was 81. Reagan. That was one of the things he did. So any of the government sanatoriums and things like that, they stopped
Yeah, but
mental
they were
health care in America.
pretty inhumane. And I'm a mentally ill person who
they-
is under psychiatric care. It's pretty barbaric still.
They were inhumane, but I mean, instead of shutting it down, it should have been changed.
Yeah.
Instead of just destroying the entire system,
Mhm.
you should change the system to make it more conducive to the health and well-being of people.
Yeah,
And
but
it's just like this crisis in drugs in America, and highly addicted methamphetamines, the opiate crisis, and all of those things did not help. And there's really no clear path for a lot of these people to go beyond.
This is a big issue.
Get out of that, to get out of their low in their life. I mean,
And the other truth that we need to face, and that I've ended up having to face, even and I didn't even want to go here, but that if it goes to mental health, it's like if you have a person that's in the throes of mania, and they're not listening to anybody, and they're a danger to themselves and others, And you have a system that's unwilling or unable to take their power, so we have legally a person in that situation can't be held liable to a degree for their actions. They've lost capacity. But we used to have a thing where you take that person and you rehabilitate them so that they can return to society. And I've never agreed with that. Like, I've been really hard against, like, I hate the mental health system as it exists. I don't like pharmaceuticals, but I'm related to mental health and I have it in my family. And recently went through something where somebody very close to me was, who is diagnosed bipolar, was manic, and was that way for months longer than they needed to be, because the system that was set up to care and foster and support kept taking a very dangerous case, blowing everybody's minds, basically, that was involved in this scenario, letting her return to being deeply unsavory and self-injurious, because it was put to me by a mental health care worker in the system. Currently there is no, they took out all the teeth, and those teeth I used to have done serious damage to my family in the past in many different instances. This is not the first time it's come up in my family. It haunts me, but not me personally. But I'm like, where were you? Where was your bleeding heart? Where were your bleeding hearts before? And now, when it really needs you, the control is off, and it leads to situations like this guy, Neely in New York, getting killed, murdered, strangled to death in front of a bunch of people on the subway, and people don't really know what to do. And there's a bunch of people there that didn't stop that, because all the same people had been like getting almost pushed in front of trains by this guy for weeks and weeks before that. He was in and out of the system and just getting churned through the jail system, and nobody really dealing with the problem. And so, I mean, what do you do with that? Like, I think ultimately these are all symptoms of the sick society and the lack of community and the loneliness epidemic, and it's all supercharged by COVID and the lockdowns and so many arguably unnecessary extremities just the way they did that seemed to make so many problems worse in such a way that benefited so many people that also made those problems worse. Not naming names, but we
kind of need to walk a fine path between free will and anarchy.
Yeah,
there is a happy medium somewhere to be met when we can address the issues of others that can assist them and better their lives. It's a pity that somebody that has a mental issue, rather than having some type of way to rehabilitate and to help or assist in a therapeutic way, you shuffle them into a jail cell because they don't know what to do with them. The hospital doesn't want to do it because they won't get paid, they won't get money for it. These people are out of the system. There's no way to recoup any kind of money from this person. So throw them in jail. What good does that do? That's no good whatsoever.
Someone makes a profit. If it's a for-profit jail,
the jail makes a little bit of profit, and then they don't want to deal with them after a period of time, and so they just throw them back out on the street. And
it's heartless too.
It's heartless.
Not rehabilitated.
It's not rehabilitation. Jail in itself is kind of a.
I'm gonna say a jail is a strong deterrent for somebody in their right mind, but that's the problem. It's
right, and for some people, if I was living on the street, I would probably commit a crime. So I'd have
a safe place to sleep for the night.
Safe place to sleep for the night.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thanks, guys. You've made such a wonderful and just society that jail seems like a nice alternative to usual existence. Wonderful.
Right.
I-
I can't go in California and have a homestead or something like that, but by golly, you let me go to jail in California.
Yeah. You know, prison in California, what's that like, the Ritz Carlton? How
I
many
have
jails
no
do you
idea.
get with that?
I have no
Wi-Fi,
idea.
does Wi-Fi come with that?
Can I just
Can I
make a
eat
quick,
vegan in prison in California? I'm sure that they have some
I
sensitivity.
just,
plan.
I just want to make one point about jail, that at least they keep the scary, unpredictable, violent men away from the gentle, scared women. When I was in a mental health facility, right there, I was terrified I was going to
Yeah.
get raped and murdered. There was nothing that
Yeah.
would have prevented it. There's no
Yeah.
locks on the doors.
And they also, you know, keep the violent women away from the gentle men. That's-
Yeah, that's true. I'm not saying it's an absolute perfect separation, obviously, but I had a terrifying experience. It was awful. And just like a very meek baby lamb of a person.
that's
But there
scary.
were all these violent men and there were multiple outbursts and things. I walked by one guy, he admitted he had raped and murdered someone at some point. So
Wow.
yeah, at least in jail, there's a separation and you're like
Yeah.
less likely to be brutalized by a rapist.
You're not right there
If you're
in
separated with the women, yeah.
well, yeah, you're the gazelle right there with lions and hyenas and every other kind of
Mhm.
character too. But I think
Yeah.
like bringing this less into a conversation about what we don't want, what we do. So what the replacement seems to be in I don't know so much for replacement, but what can we kick up or galvanize in our consciousness? And is there some sort of process or meditation or community or idea or probably not a it's probably not a patentable product, and that's why we have so many problems. If this was a patentable product, it'd be no problem because the system we have would adopt it. The system we have seems to want to perpetuate mental illness so that they can sell more products, but it's some sort of way out in the sense that a process we could teach our kids, teach each other, help support each other with this discussion, Socratic discussion, theolocution. These are different strategies, technologies, non-patentable technologies that we could use uh, to break out of the matrix of the grind of the illusion of separation and lack of community that leads to these sorts of symptoms in people. So you know, sort of short circuit the whole thing. Ideally, move higher. So seems to be a breakdown in the feeling of social order and the feeling of community almost in the first place that creates these things.
Well, I mean, I think there's, you know, I'm in a different country than you all, but currently there seems to be a lot less empathy for other people than there used to be here. And part of that is due to a lockdown, but it was already happening before. People are a lot less engaged in conversations with people face to face. It seems like we stay glued and inundated into our cell phones and don't hold a conversation in real life and hold discourse with people. So people, younger generation, don't really know how to communicate very well. They don't know how to deal with problems, as far as what I'm seeing here in Taiwan. And it's an observable difference. It's for the time that I've been here, I've seen great changes in the levels of empathy from the younger generation, and that in itself is a problem. That's borderline. I wouldn't say sociopath, but I mean it has kind of the disconnect from reality.
There's a distance there from relationships with other people that makes possibly sociopathic behavior more possible.
Yeah, and and in essence, and I hate to say it, technology.
Yeah,
This thing we all gather around and think it's awesome.
are you,
Um,
can you bring your face a little closer to the microphone? I'm starting to lose you. Just,
Oh, can you hear me better now?
yeah, that's better. Yeah, sorry.
All right. We
Yeah,
can we need to find out how to disconnect,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
Um, I actually wrote a book I haven't published yet. It's still in paper form. It was about climate healing, and that this is an aspect of this, is connecting to nature, and that we don't have these opportunities like even when I was growing up in the 90s, even in the early 2000s, all the way up until we had the smartphone, you could still get away from the screen and get some sort of time that was just free and open time, where you could connect or just think, and I say connect, but to watch, you're watching clouds, you're listening to the birds, you're, counting leaves on the tree and looking for four-leaf clovers, these kinds of things that just those opportunities are less and less now, and even for my kids too. And so the challenge now comes to create those. How do we create those opportunities for connection, not just with each other, but with nature? And enforcing it isn't the answer, because that just, none of us free-willed beings like to be forced to do anything, and that doesn't make the creature learn anyway. So, I have to get clever. I have lizards, so I send my kiddos out to catch grasshoppers, and so they go out and catch like 20 or 30 grasshoppers a go. And they're getting cash for it, but they're also spending time out with no tech in front of their face, getting connected to the ground, and doing something ancient, and at the same time, like, not going full Klaus Schwab over here, but I know they'll never starve. They're in the sense, and by the way, would consider those a delicacy. Those are really good butterfly. I don't want to get into it. Grasshopper is dank. It's real good. So is crickets, or worms. I'm losing everybody, because everybody's losing their lunch, probably. Yeah, the kids will be okay, as long as we give them opportunities to make these connections. And then, the UAP is connected to that too, because it's like, hey, look up. I'm always looking up. I'm outside. I wouldn't, I might not do that love the stars, but I don't know if I'd be doing that every single time I'm out there having a smoke, if I didn't have the opportunity to see something even more incredible than stars very often, and that it seems to be like maybe a thing to cause people to break out of their doldrums and out of their smartphones and look up. That's why I was feeling nice for a second. I hope the vibe keeps going. I hope people don't fall for the Kirkpatricks of the world and the House Oversight Committee leaders of the world. And they do go outside and look up and see what's going on.
Well, I hope everybody starts looking up a lot more too, instead of looking down. There does
Yeah.
need to be a fundamental shift, in humanity and its way of thinking. And this could be a wake up call, right? I mentioned earlier what kind of wisdom would a potential other species, race, NHI, whatever, could impart. It could be something on the lines of, well, you probably already know this, a lot of you do, but you do need to maybe be more harmonious with your planet. Or maybe you should spend a little less time on TikTok.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something, you know, that simple.
That's it. Tomorrow, that's going to get decoded out of one of the crop circles. It shows we decoded
Yeah.
the crop circle. It says use less TikTok. Literally, though.
Use less TikTok.
Yeah, and Facebook and other things. I'm loving the Discord in the sense that like that early on Twitter and Facebook and these felt brand new and fresh back when your wall was just your wall and it was made of other people you knew and you got to see their stuff, right? And you're all posting it there. And then these AI things moved in, all this curation. They led people into the corral and then they, you know, started putting the gates around, right? And now the experience is nothing like you think it is, and you have a page or something and you think those likes are your likes. Well, shucks, you're not going to reach them unless you give us money each time you post something, sucker. And I'm digging the Discord because it doesn't have this influence, although I'm sure that's going to get co-opted at some point and we'll have to move along. But you know, it's causing me and a lot of, you know, my friends, yourselves included, to look up. And the YouTube, I can't say enough about the YouTube. I've learned so much through YouTube. So certain of these seem to be geared toward, like, you know, forwarding humanity or at least expanding the horizons. Although YouTube, that's obviously a mixed bag. It's like, you know, that really drives home for me that this idea of fine-tuning our realities or timelines or something like that. You know, it's really up to you. You get this whole cornucopia, and maybe that's the lesson. It's like your reality is your choice. And that sounds like too simple of an answer, but it's like, is it though? Seems like pretty valid to me. If you have the entirety of range of human experience to choose from, and you choose to, you know, binge Mr. Beast videos instead of like whatever it is, everybody's got their interests. Game theory kind of might. Yeah. When you see this is my Kiki. Yeah, Kiki, he's 3-3. Well, I think this was have you guys had any odd encounters in the last little bit? Worth mentioning, any strange hits? See if Evie's still paying attention. He's got the chat going on. I haven't heard much from Evie. I was looking out for his chat-based Hawking radiation. Who knows? I remember Ashtar Sharan from, that's the galactic, one of these galactic commander people, right? It's the Commander Ashtar, the very same. So he got off so confused. Allie is online. Yo, Allie, what's up?
Really?
Go ahead.
I guess the strange thing that I've been seeing a lot more, I guess, activity, if you will, up when you look up than I have in the past. You know, I put some of those images up on the Discord. And
Yeah.
I find it quite interesting. I don't know quite. It's not image artifacts. You know, I can already tell it's not image artifacts because I see it with my own eye before I take the picture.
Right.
So
yeah, it could be the image artifacts.
Yeah, so you know, it's artifact in my eyes, and then there's artifact on the camera too. Then it's an image artifact, right? But yeah, I don't know what the hell those things are.
Yeah, they'd be alien spaceships. No, I don't know. I always thought that was sort of we have to play this game of like, well, maybe it's something else. Could be all sorts of other things, and it really could be.
It could be, but I mean, I don't know what it is.
After a certain point, it's like it really, once you're out of options, it's like, well, should we start talking about, what else it can be?
It
And,
looks, it has a shape like a tic tac. I have an image
Yeah.
analysis on it, and I go through and I'll look at different different bands of the light and stuff, and it has a geometry of probably enough a tic tac.
Oh, we got,
So
yeah, and the other thing, the interesting thing is, if from what we understand about the propulsion and the way these things move and stuff like that, they're obviously bending space-time, bending gravity, and some that might not be so obvious to some people, but they're dampening inertia, like in Star Trek, forward inertial dampeners, right? They're playing with inertia, they're playing with gravity, and so they're in some sort of space-time envelope, and we don't know what it looks like. But tic tac
Right.
could be a shape, doesn't even have to be a tic tac. It
could
could
be
be the
round.
size of a football,
It
for
could be
freak's
round,
sake.
right?
It
It could be a round object, and it just has that.
could be
That
round,
kind
could
of-
be lemon shaped, it could be
Yeah, it
shaped
could be
like
any-
a purple
any shape.
flamingo wearing suspenders, and we just honestly would show up like a tic tac. Now that's a little bit far.
But in
Um,
the image, it shows up. If when I look at the vicinity of the object, it always has a little bit of a gradient kind of distortion around them. So it is
Yeah,
some kind of
there's a
some kind of
blurriness.
there's a blurriness, there's a field effect.
That's
and
the thing that's
and
come up.
it's in the form of a gradient, which the gradient's just a gradual change.
Well, now
Like it's
the more quote unquote credible UFO pictures I've seen over the years out of the history books and stuff like that always seem to have this interesting quality of blurriness we talk about. And people are like, well, if they're out there, how come there's all these blurry pictures? Well, it almost sounds too convenient an explanation, but seems like there's a there. All the more convincing images I've seen have like some sort of warping at the edge or something like that. I get concerned when it's crystal clear and crisp. I'm sorry to throw any Billy Meyer fans under the bus here, but come on, Billy Meyer, really? That, and then they're like, well, it's a clear manifestation of the belief. I don't know about that. It really does seem like a model UFO hung right in front of a camera for on the line, but maybe I'm just not seeing something. But there's a lot of them just do seem very bizarre, and they have warps around the edges of them and blurs around the edges of them, and the tips aren't exactly clear. So that's the thing. And I saw on yours, it has it's a tic tac, but it's got a little bit of a hat shape. It's got two little kind of like, if it was a frown, it'd be like little frown lines on the sides, right? Little bleed downs, I noticed, which was really strange. It made me feel like that was authentic.
there's just weird looking stuff.
Yeah, I got this one that was from this Red X guy who was shared in my chat. Or yeah, he was from Ireland, and he sent this UFO that looked like a goldfish cracker. I swear to God, and it was really weird. A goldfish cracker or a grapefruit seed, and I thought at first I was looking at something like a blurred out 747 or a helicopter. Like, wow, that really looks like the tail of a helicopter. But you look closer, it doesn't look anything like that. Looks like a grapefruit seed being shot through space time. And it looks what looked like rotors moving at the top and bottom, or at the top, or actually simultaneously at the top and bottom. And there these look like little plasma bursts or little blinking, rapidly rotating lights on the top and bottom of this thing. And then it's red shifting as it moves out, as it blurs out. And that was bizarre. And it made me wonder, like, he took a picture of it. He took a video of it because he's seen, he watches things fly over his house all the time. He saw several 747s go over that day, several helicopters go over that day. They didn't look anything like that. This thing was gleaming white, and plus the gleaming white factor was like putting out extra light besides, and flying very bizarre. And it had a little bit of a contrail, but it wasn't like that distinct. It looked less like a contrail and more like a genuine like disturbance of the air, and just a little bit lighter. And then this guy says it disappeared shortly after, and we didn't get to catch that. It seemed like it was going out of phase first. I've seen that sometimes before too. You have a UAP going along and it'll phase out, like seems like what, and then it goes and it's gone. I've seen that with my own eyes through spotting scopes. And when they go, they red smear, like they don't just disappear. If you're looking through a spotting scope, one of these things that looks like it just blinks out, actually like goes horizontal and red. Very odd. So what do you do with that? I don't think they're using chemical propulsion, dude.
No. No,
Yeah.
no,
Um, you might know more about red shifting and blue shifting than I do, but that,
no. All it is, it's a variation of, you think of the Doppler effect, right? Doppler effect is sound. And like when a plane is moving toward you, it has a
Right.
distinct sound that goes into a higher pitch. And if it's moving away from you, it has a lower pitch. And that's essentially like what red shift and blue shift is. Red shift is when the object is moving away from you.
right.
Not necessarily the speed of light, but I mean, pretty rapid speed. And blue shift is when the object is moving towards you.
Right.
It appears to shift at blue. And,
Right.
that's just in the visible spectrum. But every things that are, say,
These are effects we'd expect to be seen. We do see with astronomical objects like galaxies, great distances. We're not used to seeing them in local objects in our own sky. Things that are, and I don't know how that would happen per se.
No, I mean, it's like if you have a fighter jet that comes right at you and it has a red blinking light, it's still going to be a red blinking light.
Right.
Right. It's not going to be blue shift.
Right. It's not as it's coming closer to you, it's not going to be blue shifted. Cars do that with sound, right? That's the Doppler shift in car sound. Why they're more higher pitched as they're coming close to you, because the sound is getting compressed. So it's the basic same thing with blue and red, right? But my thinking is this, like you have gravity is a warp in space-time. So light moving through a gravity warp seems like it would have its frequency changed, at least somewhat, because frequency is a function of cycles per second, electromagnetic or acoustic. Sleepy. Go up to my bed.
It would. I mean, if you look at massive stellar objects like black holes, neutron stars, and things of that nature.
I'll go up and I'll kiss you goodnight.
You can see the effects when you're approaching the event horizon. So say that you have energetic particles or you have some light. Light would be the best example in this case. You have some light, you shine your red light. Okay. You shine your red light onto a black hole, and then as that light approaches the black hole and it goes down that well, it'll be shifted, blue shift.
Would you mind? It seems like you're a little bit muffled, and I got to go off mute really quick to try and get this guy down. He wants to go and join his sibs in their beds, but they're already asleep. So I got to deal with this really quick. You guys yak for a sec.
And it's so how you all doing?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
How you doing?
How am I doing?
Yeah.
Um, I'm good. I'm just resting. But yeah,
All you guys are in the States, I take it.
um, doing pretty good. The weather has gotten a little cooler the past few days here, so I'm glad. There's a lot of heat domes around.
It's been intense weather, you guys. I've got a I think that we might want to just actually I got the real life calling. There's no easy way around it. I gotta put my full mind into. You're asleep already. Asleep, silly. You're already in bed. You're the one rocking out up here with us. Everybody's in bed. Yeah, but they're in bed. It's the dad life.
Yeah, it's a dad life.
It's the dad life. Single parenting. Love you guys. I appreciate you coming by for this.
No problem. No problem.
Silly ending of this. But I so appreciate you. We're doing this again next week. Every week at 12:30 a.m. Pacific. We're gonna have these conversations till the cows come home. And then we're in it to win it. And he wants pie now.